Yes, today we are going to try to power up the Apple II power supply. In the last video we changed the reefer caps, and we are now going to try to see if we can get some output of this. And that's power. And no, I don't remember if I placed the power switch the right way, and I actually forgot to measure that afterwards, so I just have to wiggle it to see how this goes. And I have an old multimeter here down in the shed, so I will just try to connect this and see if we can get some kind of output. I don't know if this power supply needs to be loaded down for it to produce an output. There I have 5.29 volts, 11.98, minus 5.1 and minus 11.7 volt. And I will say that's good enough for me to try to just connect this to the motherboard to see if I can get some output on the Apple. But before I do that, I'm actually going to take a look on the monitor to see if I can establish some status to see what needs to be done to get that operational. Yes, I'm going to take the lid out of this, and this also opens from the bottom. It's ordinary threaded plastic screws. These screws are also a bit rusty on the surface, but not as much as some of the screws that we had on the Apple II unit itself. There are actually different kinds of screws. This was probably the one in the back. And here all the plastic or rubber feet is actually intact. And they look in good condition too. Here you can see where I assessed last time that there was damage on this bezel, and you can see here this is the fastening points for the screen itself, and they have come loose. That is fixable if the screen itself is worth saving, and hopefully the back will just slide up. There might be some more screws. Yeah, actually there are some screws here down here in the bottom here. You have some screws that's sitting a bit deeper in the plastic, and they actually looks a bit rusty. I will just try to use this magnet to lift out the screws. It's a bit strange if the screws is able to be rusty but they won't lift out by a magnet, but they did. Oh, we lost that one. But when I lift this up, here you can see the damage more in detail, and every part of this grill is gone. There's just two pieces left. Serviceman warning. You can see all the bits and pieces lying around here, and I've actually seen people on YouTube glue together this kind of grill and fix up machine with every bits and pieces like this. We have to see, because even if we do have most of them, it's a real puzzle to see where they actually should go, because each breaking point is of course different. This was the missing screw, and as you can see it's quite rusty. I'm inspecting the damage done to the bezel more closely here, and this swivel mechanism looks okay, but both the fastenings on this side have gone loose from the front itself. So to actually disconnect this, we have to take out the whole bezel and the tube. We might be able to pull that off within a reasonable amount of work, but let's assess if there are some other damage to this that will make that repair void anyway. I feel kind of safe working inside here because I have not tried to power this on, and this has guaranteed been powerless for several months. We had the Rifa caps on the 220 volt input, but here you can see there are some other make of caps. And this unit is made by Samsung, and that you actually saw when we inspected this bezel too, made in Korea by Samsung. So we already know that this is Samsung made. There are some rust on the shielding for the high voltage transformer, flyback transformer, and there are some rust on this, and this is the main transformer board for this. You can see the 220 volt comes in here, and you do have the power switch up here, comes here, and all goes into this main transformer, and you actually supply the AC voltage to the board down here, and you have the rectifier bridge down here, and you have capacitor here. That's the main capacitor of the power supply. So what voltage this actually runs on, I'm not sure, but I would guess that this is probably 12 volt power supply, and if we dare turn this on, we probably can measure that. When it comes to this kind of units that hasn't been powered on in ages, and there is no switch mode on the inside, I normally like to turn this on with a gradual increase in voltage, and that I can do with my Variac, which is a turnable transformer for making regulation on the 220 volt AC voltage. I might do that, and I just might turn it on. I have inspected now some of the components on this board, and there are some really strange design choices. I will try to point this out to you. Yes, now you can see inside. You actually have the curve of the CRT here, and they have bent some of the capacitors down here just to fit beneath the screen. So to make this monitor maybe a bit smaller in the depth, they have gone out of their way to make this fit in here. And you have this capacitor, electrolytic capacitor, laying on its side, and this all is bent forward to fit into the case. And although that really should be not a huge problem in itself, putting capacitors of the electrolytic kind in small enclosed spaces with a lot of heat is not a good way to prolong the life of the capacitors, as they will dry out real quick if they are exposed to heat, like they probably are down in this really narrow gap down here. But all in all, I think this looks quite okay. Of course, the plastic and the construction itself is as it may, but I think I will dare to turn this on. This really is just an analog board, and there really is not much that can go wrong. I will give the board a more proper inspection before I test it, but as you can see when I zoom in on all the components here, I will zoom out just a bit, sorry for that. This is the main power supply part. The filter cap is 35 volts, so maybe I was missing out, and when I said it's running on 12 volt, it probably is 24 volts or some in between there. But that really doesn't matter much. The solder joints on the back of the CRT, they look pristine. It's just like they were made a week ago. So all in all, I'm quite happy with the state of this. I will just try to turn it on and see if I'm still this happy when I've tested it. Yes, I'm a bit skeptical to turn this on because, as we can see now, there are this gap around the bezel, and that means that the CRT tube is a bit more leaning backwards than it used to be. It's also that it's just one more fastening point that keeps this in place, but if I'm really careful, slide this backwards and connect the 220 volt cable real careful, I think we will be okay. And this power switch with a nice touch that you push it down and you have the green LED behind it is a real good marker that we know this is off now. And I will just connect the power, be real careful about that. When I connect the power here, the power switch is connected straight to the mains, so there will be no power anywhere until we turn the switch. And we have a green light, and we have green illumination on the phosphor. I am not sure how this screen is supposed to work, if you have to ground the signal to get it dark, but the screen is lighting up quite good. I will turn it off and I will try to connect the Apple II here on the desk and try to connect the video signal and the power supply and see what we get. Now I have connected everything, I think. No, of course I have not. I have not connected the video display to the computer itself here, like so. But then I will turn on the display and I will turn on the mainboard, and we actually get a picture. This picture does not look the way I was hoping, but let's not jump into anything. There are probably some good explanation for this picture. I will change the camera angle and zoom in on the screen to show you just how this looks. So here you can see what the screen looks like. We have something that looks like writing here, and we have this steady pattern all over the screen. So there probably some easy explanation why we get just this picture, but as I said earlier, I do not have enough experience with Apple computers to tell straight away why it looks like it does and if there is something we can do. I will just look for some obvious things and reseat some ships, and I will try this again. Yes, I told you that I was going to reseat some of these ships to see if they was sitting in loose or if there was some corrosion or something. And no, it's kind of a bad light situation in here. I will try to get some more light on this. I don't know if you see this any better. This is the 6502 ship. And these pins here actually looks kind of rusty, and that's pin 39 and 40 on this chip. They actually is rusty when here where they enter the plastic. I don't know if there is any fault because of that, because every other pin looks quite okay. So I will just reseat this. Also, some of the other ships seems a bit loose in the sockets, but of course there could be some bad solder joints or something underneath. But just let's try to turn it on again. I will change the camera now so that you can look on the screen. Sorry for the bad sync on the screen. I thought I was able to adjust the camera, but I actually was not. I will try now to turn it on. Yes, and you actually have an A prompt on the screen, so we get some working characters here, and I will say that we have a working system. I will just test the keys on the keyboard. There are some keys they're working but a kind of bit sketchy, but that's probably the way we have to accept that it is until we have loosened it up a bit. And this keyboard is actually made up of these square switches. So under each key here you have a unique switch. And I think we can say that this is actually working. The keyboard for the Norwegian settings is actually made in Ireland, and you have the Apple logo behind this. So this machine is made by Apple in Ireland. I think we can say that so far this test has proven to be a success, and there is no doubt in my mind that we will get this to be a good working Apple II machine again. So I will try to focus on the more important parts of this now. And I will try to clean the board, and I really need to clean out this keyboard. I will try to zoom in on the keyboard. And you actually can see the dust on the keyboard, and you can see that the keys are spotted with years and years of grime, and that needs to be addressed. And I think I will tackle those issues first before I do anything about the case, so that I still can see that this machine is working in the electrical and electronical way before I do anything else with it. Let's just do a quick test to see if this actually is running. We test by the standard basic 10 print Coiro 20 go to 10, 20 go to 10. And that proves that we have a working Apple II computer with a working mainboard and with a working monitor. I do actually have a system that I want to make as good as I possibly can. We have gone as far as we can on this episode. I think in the next part of this series I will clean up the motherboard better, and I will do a cleanup of the keyboard to see if we can make this look better. And afterwards we will tackle the plastics and the other things that we need to make the whole setup look like it deserves to do. So that's it for this short episode. So thanks for watching. And please hit subscribe if you want to be notified when I post another video. See you in the next one.